and believing in itself? The players just all getting better?
Yeah, I think you look at last year's team. I mean, I think you could see it coming. I certainly could. You look. It starts with with Kopp and Nance. They both started as freshmen. They just kept getting better. They've been good players since they got there. Now they're juniors. Gaines was hurt last year. Now he's back. Ryan Young got a lot of playing time as a freshman. He was pretty good, and now he's really good. Now same thing with Barron. You add Audige, who was there last year but was ineligible to play, so he kind of learned the system. Ty Berry's a really good player. You add him. So now what you have, you've got depth on top of, what is probably one of the best, forget about point guards in our league, one of the best players in our league, in Bowie.
Coach, the next question comes from Tom Caker.
Hey, Fran. I guess you're not surprised that, Northwestern's doing as well as they are. Can you speak to how tough this league is? And do you worry about maybe that you guys all just kind of beat the heck out of each other for the next couple months more than anything else?
Well, that's, Tom, that's just no different than any other year. It's the way that happens every year. And it's kind of what you expect in this league. If you are in a power conference, that's the way it should be. I think without question, ours is the best top to bottom for the reasons you just mentioned. That's the way it's going to be all year long.
Other questions for Coach McCaffery? Mike Halas.
Fran, what changes have there been in travel this year, and what changes lie ahead?
We've only traveled twice, and there haven't been a lot of differences other than, you're on your way to shoot around, you stop and you have a COVID test. We had 2 COVID tests the day before the Gonzaga game, one here and one there. But the shoot arounds are kind of the same. I mean, I think, Mike, we're gonna bus maybe a few extra times. We're taking a smaller group, so we're taking smaller planes sometimes. We've taken bigger planes to accommodate what would now be considered tier 2 personnel. So only tier 1 travels. So it's smaller planes, but in terms of the schedule and so forth, it's not that different.
I heard that Maryland just stayed on the road this week, going from Purdue to Wisconsin. Will you have anything like that at all this season?
Well, I think if you look at the next 2 games after this one, that would have been a logical time to do it, because we're playing at Rutgers at Maryland, but, there's a lot of time in between, so we'll probably come home. If the games were a little bit closer together, we would have stayed on the road. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Caker.
Hey, Fran, I saw Nicholas Bear down there along your bench, kind of helping out as something in some sort of role. Can you speak to his role and what it's like to have Nicholas back with you? Because I think most of those guys have an immense amount of respect for him.
Yeah, Nicholas is the guy that we love, and he had a desire to finish his graduate degree. As you know, he played in his 5th year, so he began his graduate degree in his last year playing for us. So he expressed a desire to finish. So we've added him as a graduate assistant, and we're thrilled to have him be part of the program. I mean, there's no better representative of everything that we stand for than Nicholas Bear.
Mike Halas.
I've heard 2 of your players in the last week compare Keegan Murray to Nicholas. Do you agree with that? And if so, why?
Well, I think they're different players. I think when people make that comparison is it's his, both of their energy levels. They both play with great energy level, and they both impact the game in a variety of ways, especially on the offensive glass. But Keegan has a chance, I think, to be really special, like Nicholas was. So I think let's let him develop. But I think it really begins with the energy level in terms of comparison.
Any other questions for Coach McCaffery? Matt Koss.
Fran, what's the key now in kind of getting consistency on the defensive end of the floor here? We saw against Purdue it was really good, and then Minnesota some lapses. What's the key now to get that consistently?
Yeah, I think it comes down to locking into what they're doing, because every team does different stuff, and being, I think, consistently locked in like we were against Purdue. Purdue runs a lot of really good stuff offensively. They execute well. Our press was good. Our half-court defense was good. Our activity was good. Our execution was good. And against Minnesota, it was good at times. It was really bad at times. And, we kind of relied on our offensive ability to go outscore them and didn't get the job done there. So I think the same type of effort we had against Carolina and against Purdue is going to be necessary in this league.
We have time for one or two more questions for Coach, if you got it. Pat Hardy. You're muted, Pat.
Okay, Fran, how much does having a veteran team help you in situations like this where you move on? You never get too high or too low, but are you pretty confident your players feel the same way?
Yeah, I think, when you have the kind of game we had the other night, I think the guys, take responsibility for that. I don't sense, I haven't seen, a lot of finger pointing, blaming the coaches, blaming each other, blaming the refs. I think it's accountability. We as coaches and we as players, we accept that collectively, and then we try to improve and get better. And I think that's what we've always tried to do, and I think that's what's happened the last couple of days. The guys in the locker room have been very professional, as you would have expected, and that's what you kind of expect. I think that's kind of your point from a veteran club, that they'll be able to understand what we can't do and what we should have done and make the necessary corrections the next time we take the floor, and then consistently execute them. Because our defense wasn't great against Gonzaga either. We scored 88, but we gave up 99. So we needed to be better in that game against a number one team. And we were really good at times. We forced 18 turnovers against Gonzaga, but we weren't consistently good. And the same thing against Minnesota. But I think our performance against Purdue was as good as we've had, in a long time. So we've proven we can do it. We got to now do it consistently.
David Eichel.
Yeah, Fran, CJ is probably as unselfish as a player as you guys have on your team. I mean, would you like him to be more aggressive, or are you pretty satisfied with where he's at offensively?
Yeah, I'm satisfied. I would like him to be more offensively oriented, but he's just not that kind of guy. Like he's not hunting shots. He's making plays. I mean, the play in the Purdue game, he was open. He drove and kicked it to Patrick for a three in the corner. I mean, that's just who he is. He makes winning plays. And that's why he shoots such an incredible percentage. He really works hard at the defensive end. He's very active. So he's a two-way guy that does what his team needs. I'm comfortable with him taking 5 or 10 more shots a game with the way he shoots the ball. And I'm okay with him hunting shots at times. And I've encouraged him to do that. And I think he's gotten better. But the bottom line is he's always been that way. He was like that way in high school. He's incredibly efficient and really understands the game and plays it the right way.
Okay, I see no further questions.
Hey, Joe, obviously you guys have shown here the last couple of weeks you can lock in defensively, but there's also been some lapses as well. What's going to be the key for this group to kind of get it together on that end consistently?
Yeah, I mean, your last word's the biggest key is consistently. I think we've done a really good job of locking in on our home court, but obviously our 2 losses away from home, we haven't locked into the game plan. I think early on in games, maybe they make a run or we do some uncharacteristic like things, and then we kind of just continue to make mistakes, and we can't let one mistake become 2, you know. We got to lock in and really correct those mistakes early on in games. That way it's not affecting us late game situations. So I think we just got to really figure that out on the road and stay locked into the game plan, even when things aren't going our way.
Next question comes from Mark Emmert.
Hey, Joe, I wanted to get your perspective on what happened the other night at Minnesota. Obviously, you guys weren't going to go undefeated in the Big Ten. Nobody is, but that was a pretty tough way to lose a game. What did you guys talk about afterwards in terms of trying to learn from that, but also put it away?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's really unfortunate. It's one that we were up 7 with 45 seconds left. So it's one that we should have won. And so there's a lot of mistakes that we had late game that we need to improve on. So we watched the film, and we know that there's going to be a lot of, tight games throughout the rest of the Big Ten season. So we got to learn from these mistakes and really correct those as we move forward. So it's obviously unfortunate and disappointing that we lost this one, but we know it's a long season and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to, win tight games. Like
Tom Kakert.
Hey, Joe, curious what you've seen from Northwestern when you watch film on them. The thing that jumps out at me is they've really shot the ball very well this year. Yeah,
I think one of the biggest things is they're playing like they have something to prove. Obviously, they didn't have as good of a season last year as they would have hoped, but they have a lot of guys that are playing really well right now, shooting the ball really well. And you can just tell by watching film that they're connected. Obviously, I'm not in their locker room or their practices, but you can just tell that the way that they're playing defensively, the way that they're moving the ball on offense, they're playing connected and they're playing like they have something to prove. And they want to be a team that's names mentioned at the top of the league. So it's a good test for us, and I'm excited for it.
Pat Hardy.
Yeah, Joe, do you think any of you guys are feeling pressure trying to live up to – I mean, you went into that Minnesota game ranked 4th in the country. Do you think there's any pressure on you guys trying to live up to that you're putting on yourselves?
No, I don't think so. We take it one game at a time, like I've been saying all year. No.
David Eichel.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, obviously nobody has any higher expectations than you guys in the locker room, and you guys are a veteran group. Is it easier to kind of get worked up after a loss like that? And how have you guys been able to kind of keep level-headed throughout what is going to be a long and tough Big Ten season?
I think the biggest thing for us is just realizing how long of a season it is. The Big Ten's so tough, like you guys said earlier, that one loss isn't going to hurt us in the end. I think obviously it's disappointing for us to lose this one early on in the season, but we know that there's a lot of season left. And we can't dwell on it because we just got to focus on the next one because we have a really good Northwestern team coming in here tomorrow night.
Rob Howe.
Hey, Joe, what's it like having Nicholas Baer back on the bench, and what can he do for you guys in terms of helping you, being as he's been so recently that he's been out there doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, he just got here last week, so I think he's still kind of trying to figure out what his role is on the staff. But I think just having him around, a guy that's been through it, he's been here he was here for 5 years. So he's going to be able to help us all out and see different things that maybe the coaches don't see and just have a different perspective that can relate to the players maybe a little bit better than our coaching staff has. So I think just having him on staff's a great asset for our team.
David?
Yeah, Joe, you guys pride yourself on being unselfish, and obviously CJ Frederick's no different. And, you saw him be more aggressive last game. What have you kind of talked to him about just in terms of trying to make sure that he stays aggressive throughout games, knowing that he's probably one of your better shooters, not just on the team, but probably in the conference and in the country.
Yeah, he's obviously a terrific player and has shown that. Sorry. Not only this season, but last season as well. You know, he's a terrific shooter, shooting like 57%. So we got to get him more shots at the end of the day. The great thing about CJ is he's so unselfish. He's willing to make the extra pass to an open teammate. But with the way that he's shooting the ball, at the end of the day, we got to find ways to get him more shots.
We have time for one or two more for Joe if anybody has any further questions.
That we want to accomplish is still very much available to us. I mean, you know, you go on the road in the Big Ten. I mean, teams are losing left and right on the road. Like it's not like, you know, any game is given. I mean, it's going to be what this league is. You know, there's going to be games, big games you win. There's going to be games you lose. There's going to be games you had won that you lose, and there's going to be games that you shouldn't win that you do. So I mean, it's just the way a season goes. We've had games like this, you know, in my career, and you know, but it's all about, you know, the mentality of, you know, next game on the schedule and being focused. Every team presents a new challenge, and that's, you know, Northwestern presents completely different things than Minnesota did, and you know, so we're getting locked in for that.
Kaker.
Connor, it's not new that other teams are doubling off you to slough off on Luka when you dump it into him. How do you guys make another adjustment to that and what they're doing? Are they doing anything differently this time around?
No, not really. I mean, with our lineup, you know, most of the time it's going to be me that double off because, you know, Jordan, CJ, and Weezy, I mean, you know, you obviously don't want to double off them. So, you know, I think it's just a mixture of, you know, I don't mind it because it opens up a lot of things for me passing the ball. I mean, I'm able to load, like against Purdue, you know, they were sagging off a lot, and I didn't shoot well that game, but, you know, they're way off me, so I'm able to, like, I see everything, and I'm able to load guys up, you know, it's really, really easy passes, you know, make plays off the dribble. And it's the same thing as well, you know, in terms of, you know, whether it's diving to the basket or shooting my jumper when it's open, you know, I just, you know, whether I get it in rhythm or I see it close out, the big man closing out, I can attack him and then make a driving kick play to one of the other shooters. So it's just, you know, it's similar to last year, you know, nothing different. It's just, we just need to, I mean, we've played fine with it, and we'll continue to do so.
Mark Emmert.
Yeah, Connor, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about Joe Toussaint. First of all, what have you seen in terms of his growth from year one to year two as a point guard? And then secondly, did you talk to him after that game at Minnesota? Obviously, he did a lot of good things, but those free throws, I'm sure he's kicking himself about those.
Yeah. The thing is, he's a great free throw shooter. It was kind of like, I don't think anyone expected him to miss both in that scenario. And then, you know, he's really upset with himself, and you know, I know that he'll bounce back from it. I talked to him, you know, I texted him after the game. We all were, you know, talking to him in the locker room. He was really upset, and you know, he just said yesterday we were shooting free throws, and he just said he made 2 out of 2, and afterwards it was like his first time, and after he just said like that will never happen again. Like he was adamant about that, like that will never happen, and you know, so that was cool to see. I thought just, you know, his mentality in that, and you know, I know we all have confidence in him. You know, he's a really good free throw shooter, not just good, really good. And you know, so you know, I think moving forward, you know, he'll bounce back from that and continue to do big things for this team.
Any other questions for Connor?
Yeah, Connor, one more then. You're a point guard too. Is there a different mentality you have to have as a point guard late in games, trying to close out games like that?
I wouldn't say different necessarily. I mean, you are the one with the ball, and you know, it's always, you got to take care of the ball. You got to make your free throws. Those are the things at the end of the game that really good point guards do better than everybody else. You know, the guys that are really good under pressure, you know, they can make big plays, but I think it also is making the right play. You know, you see, you know, point guards all the time. You know, the really good ones they'll go when they have themselves, but they'll also, you know, find somebody late game in a scenario in which you think, oh, they're going to shoot. No, they make a great pass, or they load somebody up on the other side, whatever. and then, they knock down their free throws and they keep the ball. They don't turn it over. Those are the big things, I think, as a point guard, those are the things you need to do. And I think we have guys that are capable of doing that, guys that don't turn it over. Jabo is obviously not a big turnover guy. I haven't been turning it over besides Purdue. I had a couple too many. And Joe T's been really good as well.
Rob Howe.
Connor, what do you see from Northwestern on film, and what are some of the keys tomorrow night to knocking off a much improved team?
Yeah, I mean, they're just really good. Just to be honest with you, they're just a really good team. It'll be a fun game. They got good players. Boo Boo is I grew up with him, and so I've known kind of his game and seen him play, and I always knew he would be really good. But you go down the line, he seems to be kind of like their one of their main offensive threats. But then they got shooters, Miller Kopp, Robbie Barron's back from injury. Ryan Young's playing really well. Audij is played at 17 against Indiana in the second half. So, they just have a bunch of different guys that can do really good things. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder. So they kind of, you respect that in them. And, they're well coached. Chris Collins is a really good coach. And, I think it'll be a fun game.
Okay, last question for Connor. David.
Connor, you guys put together a really solid defensive effort against Purdue. Then obviously we saw it happen against Minnesota. Upon looking back at both those games, what are one or two of the biggest things that you can kind of point to as to why the drastic difference, and how do you guys fix those going into Northwestern?
Well, against Purdue, I think we were obviously we were really sound, and then I think against Minnesota, I think we fouled a little bit too much. I think that would be the main thing, and then you don't really count on one of their Brandon Johnson making 8 threes. But just making in-game adjustments to prevent that from happening again. And then I think fouling was a big thing. I think we were putting them on the line too much, and they were making us pay. Even down the stretch, they shot free throws really, really well, and it just opened up a lot of other things for them. Obviously, I think doing a better job on Carr would have been good, but he's kind of been. He's been really good all year. So, down the stretch, maybe trying to keep it out of his hands more, and just being more active as a whole would be the big thing, I guess, in my opinion.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Connor.
All right, thank you.
First question comes from Mark Emmert.
Hey, Joe, I just asked Connor about this too, and he said obviously you're very upset about those missed free throws the other night, but are you able to look back at that game and see all the things that you did well and appreciate that, or are you still just too upset about those free throws?
To be honest, I flushed the game already. When I got back, I watched film on it, and I can take positives out of it, but we lost the game, so I just flushed it, and I'm just moving on to the next game.
What was the teaching moment? What did you learn from that game, you personally?
Stay the course. Help the helper, and to stay confident, to be honest with you. That was the main part, just staying confident.
David Eichel.
Yeah, Joe, obviously Northwestern's kind of a completely different team than they were last year. What's the biggest difference that you've seen on film between this year's squad and last year?
They're well connected. They have a lot of good pieces. They're also young. But they're well connected on the defensive end and offensive end. And that's what makes the team really good, to be honest with you, if they're all connected.
Tom?
Joe, they've shot the ball really well from 3 this year. Has that been a point of emphasis in the game prep for this one?
Yeah, definitely. They shot the ball really well from 2 as well. So it's just about getting in the stance, and guarding your yard. And just helping, we're just going to play through each other, help defense, help the helper, rotate, double and post, just things we need to do to win.
Mark?
Yeah, Joe, now that you've played, I think 9 games this year, how are you a better player this year than you were last year at this time? And what areas have you improved, you think?
I just felt like I let the game come to me. Last year, I was kind of nervous and, just really didn't know what to do, in certain situations and stuff. But this year, I just feel more comfortable on the floor, just helping my teammates out from the bench when I'm not on the floor. I just feel more comfortable.
When Fran puts you in a game late like that, like against Minnesota, does that give you some confidence?
Yeah, definitely. I know my teammates trust me, and I know the coaches trust me, because if not, I wouldn't be in the game at that time. And that just, it boosts my confidence. And I never lose confidence in myself, even if, people don't believe in me. But, it's just confidence is a big thing, you always got to have.
David?
Yeah, Joe, looking back last week, you guys put together probably your best defensive effort against Purdue, and then obviously the game against Minnesota. What are one or two of the things you can point to as to why the drastic change, and what do you guys need to fix heading into Northwestern?
I just want to say we executed the game plan to the best of our ability against Purdue, and against Minnesota we didn't. We just wasn't connected, to be honest with you, and that's the big problem right there. We just wasn't connected offensively and defensively, and that's where the holes came in, defensively, because we just wasn't connected as a group. And against Northwestern, where there's a lot of shooters, a lot of drivers, a lot of cutters, just a bunch of good players. We're going to have to stay connected for the full 40 minutes in order to win this game.
Got time for one more if anyone's got a follow-up question for Joe. Seeing none, we'll let you go. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Good luck tomorrow.
Nice.